Harlington Upper School in Bedfordshire is used to using pupil voice to inform their teaching. But we went one stage further and actually wired up a Year 9 student with a small camera to experience what it's really like to see a whole lesson through a pupil's eyes. We film a geography teacher's lesson in detail. What impact will the pupil perspective have on our teacher's own assumptions about her teaching? What fresh insights will she take from her pupils, and how will this affect her teaching practice in the future? Our brave volunteer teacher is Nikki Hall, an NQT in the geography department at Harlington.
Nobody knows better how they learn than the students themselves, and that's really, I just want to get an overall feel of how they feel it's going. Teachers could be quite scared of asking people because putting your faith into this person that you teach that you might not necessarily have built a relationship with yet, and asking them what they think about your teaching, which is quite a personal thing, and to take on board what they say without being offended, I think it's quite a hard task because pupils can be blunt and they can be rude, and I think that there are some teachers that would be scared of doing that.
Thomas Rowell is head of the geography department. He will be mentoring Nikki through this exercise and will observe her class as she teaches.
I'll be looking at the pupils to see what their response is. You know, we've got all these great ideas, these educational ideas that we think work, good starters, fun things, group work, different activities we do, but do they actually work? And are there other ways of doing it that they think would benefit them? There will always be surprises from it, but they won't kind of do... They won't do what we think they'll do, they'll come up with their own ideas, and that's really refreshing.
Right, George? Yeah. We are starting a brand new topic today, and the brand new topic we're starting is going global. We're going to start thinking about products and where products are coming from. So the first thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you my handbag. Okay? I want you to have a think. Where do you think this was made? Okay, you can discuss it in pairs, have a think between you and make a decision. I have a nice hoodie. Where do you think this one might have been made or came from? Okay, what do you think? One of the problems with products is that they are not necessarily all parts of the product are made in the same place. If you look at my handbag, the outside of my handbag may have been made in one place, but the zip may have been made somewhere else, and the particular parts of the zip may have come from different countries. We are going to look at where we think a pair of jeans comes from. I'm not just meaning the material. What else might I mean? Michael?
The packaging as well.
Yeah, the packaging, maybe. If you were to hazard a guess about where most products are manufactured, what do you think you could? Anybody think they could hazard a guess? Joe?
Like a poorer country.
Right, what's a better word than a poorer country? What's a better term to use? Edward? Yep, okay, an LEDC, a less economically developed country. I will bring round for you two types of sheet. You're going to get a sheet that looks like this, okay? And the sheet is a flow diagram, and we're going to look at Walter's global genes. What we're going to do is you're going to think about all the different places, different parts of Walter genes came from. Now, I'm going to give you this sheet, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a clues sheet. And the clues sheet have clues on what countries different parts come from. So I'd like you to work in twos or threes. I would like you to fill it in pencil, okay, what country you think the jeans were designed in, the cotton was grown in which country, okay? Are there any questions before you start? How are we doing?
Like a chicken.
You're nearly right, but you want the country, not the city. If there's any clues you're not sure, just leave them because we're going to mark them together so you'll be able to fill in the blanks. What I would like you to do now in your pairs is read through each, and if you're right, put a tick and see if you can fill in any gaps that you couldn't quite fill in before. I'm going to give you about 2 or 3 minutes to do that. If I was to ask you to describe where Walter's genes came from, what would you say?
Most of them are from like poorer countries and then transported by the rich ones.
Very good, I like that. Emily?
And the genes come from a variety of countries.
Good. And we're going to try and meet one of your main learning objectives today, because one of your main learning objectives is to complete a neat and accurate map. We're going to map where Walter's global genes came from. If you look on your desk, you will see that you have a blank world map. Okay, so get in front of you your blank world map and make sure that you can see page 63. Do questions in the book 1, 2 and 3. The first thing on the side of on your map is I would like you to write yourself down the continents. Okay, in a minute, not yet, we're going to go through your whole task first. Now, you're then going to have to get yourself 5 colouring pencils. I have some pencils at the front, and you are going to colour the map. Once you've done that, you're going to have to write the labels or name the countries. Now, rather than use an atlas, this book is really good because it has a world map in the back of it for you. So you will then go to page 124 to 125. Now, I'll write all these page numbers on the board for you so that you can have a look if you're confused. And you just need to look each country up on the map, and where it's got the numbers, you need to label your countries instead. Okay, and then once you've done that, I'd like you to attempt to do question 3. You can come and get scissors and glue and stick that into your book. Okay, don't worry about the key for now, just colour them in and then label the name of the country. What we've done today about products being made in different countries for different reasons is what this term means. I'd like you to try and write yourself a sentence to show me what you think globalisation means.
Something is made in a variety of countries.
Okay, thank you. Lots and lots.
After the class, Thomas does a feedback session with the pupils. He shows them key pieces of footage from the pupil cam to find out what they thought of the lesson.
Let's just have a look at...
In another classroom, Nikki observes the students as they comment. What have they actually learnt? And are there any revelations for Nikki?
Where do you think this was made?
Why do you think you did this activity? What kind of answers were people giving about where the bag's in? What kind of things were people saying?
A lot of people were saying like China and Japan and stuff, because whenever you look at like labels and stuff, they normally always say like China and Japan.
And by the end of the lesson, what had you found out perhaps that was different to that?
That they're like made in all different places.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you. So you're sitting here, Naomi, you're sitting in the lesson. It's different from seeing it there, isn't it, to seeing it from that angle where I was sitting. What makes you start to look over that? You get a little look to your left there. And earlier on we just saw you looking out the window a little bit. What?
Because I'm looking to see what people are saying.
Okay. Listening to other people. Yeah. When you Ed, are in a lesson like that and you start to wander off a little bit. When you start to wander off a little bit, why does that happen, do you think?
Because you sort of hear noises and get distracted as well.
Okay. So how long do you reckon you can concentrate for, Erin?
I think I've got quite a long attention span. I think I get bored about 20 minutes.
Anybody think that 20 minutes of them would be an absolute marathon? Yeah. 20 minutes for you. So what, for you, how long do you think it is before you... Oh, there, we've seen, haven't we?
In like lessons where the teacher's just talking for ages, I get distracted after like 5 minutes.
So it's much shorter time.
Yeah.
So just think of that, right? You're looking from the halfway back in the room to a sheet that's being held up like this. Can you see what's on that sheet from there? So, do you find that helpful when teachers are there? You're going to be looking at this sheet here. Is that a helpful thing or not, do you think? Do you think that?
No, because you really have no idea what's on it and you don't know what you're meant to be doing.
So how do you think we could do that better?
Like handing them out and then telling us about it.
Well, hand them out first and then tell you. Okay. Hand them out first and then tell you what they're about. Okay. How many of you are colouring in the maps the continents, each different colour? How many of you are colouring in the maps each different colour based on the production? What bit of the production line it was? Why do you think you did things differently? Because we just said that's the bit in the lesson where you at least, I think that's the bit in the lesson, looking at the footage here, that's the lesson where you started looking around and looking at the people in front of you. You're just starting to kind of get a bit, wandering off a little bit. Well, I think that exercise was more confusing.
Well, she said all the instructions one after the other, and as soon as you lost the first one, you just, I'll wait until she can come round and tell me exactly what to do.
So what do you think could have been done better there? What could have happened differently?
I think it would have been better if she wrote them up on the board, because then you could keep looking back and referring to them.
Okay, so is there anything that anybody didn't understand about the lesson at all? Matt, what do you reckon?
I didn't really understand what the actual meaning of globalisation was.
Is there anybody that felt the same? Anybody else felt confused in that way?
When we have to write our own definition of something, I don't think that helps me because I don't always know if it's right. So I can write something down and then go out the lesson not knowing if what I actually think I'm doing is right.
What do you hope will be the first thing Miss Hall does next lesson?
I think it'd be helpful if she wrote up what the definition for globalisation was, so we could check it and check that everyone did get the right definition.
After the pupil feedback session, Tom meets with Nikki to discuss the day's outcomes.
So what was the one thing that you came out of that for you that you would make sure next time you're going to change?
Oh, the instructions by far.
That first bit that you did with the quiz I thought was really good actually, I really liked that. But it was that second activity that was just a little bit of confusion with it, wasn't there? And that just perhaps needs
I
clarifying.
thought what Erin said was quite interesting, that she said that I listen and then because I'd lost that first sentence I could never catch quite up with myself, and I just think to myself, well, it's okay, I'll ask Miss Hall in a minute. But also what was evident is that 6 or 7 of them thought that around the room, so that meant that I spent all my time going around re-explaining a task.
I think sort of watching that footage from Naomi's point of view is that there's a lot more distractions around than you think there are from up there. I mean, when you're at the front of the room, you don't really see what's going on. But when you're down there, even just somebody next to you kind of playing with a pencil case, or somebody answering a question over there, or something happening out the window.
And that's what Edward said, wasn't it? Because he highlighted and said the main distraction in the lesson is when there's other things going on around you.
And I think it's also the task that you do as well. It's the work you give them. In that first task today, Naomi was totally focused on it. She was focused on you when you were talking for short, quick times. When it went on a bit and when she didn't quite know what she was doing, that's when it happened. So I think it's the appropriateness of the task and the materials and the resources that you give them. What is it you actually want them to have written down as their definition of globalisation? Because
our plan was to say, what have you written, what have you written, what have you written, and, well, can we think of one as a whole class?
So when are you going to do that now?
So I'm going to do it as my starter next lesson.
Genius. I love that, when you do a starter and they've got totally the wrong end of the stick, and by the end of the lesson, oh yeah, I've got it now. And it's the starter was like, oh, that bag's made in China and that's made in... And they all sort of came up with LEDCs, poor countries. Some of the concepts were really quite sort of the stereotypical ideas, and what you managed to do in that lesson, which was really good, was start to break down some of those stereotypes about development and globalisation. My only thought was the lesson seemed task-driven rather than objective-driven. It's sort of telling students why you're doing things as well as how, we just set a bit of context, I think. They're very perceptive, I think. They were, they know what makes a good lesson, really, don't they?
A week later, we returned to Harlington Upper School to see how Nikki was getting on.
I took quite a number of things from the feedback. First of all, the starter activity is very focused on making sure that they all understand the definition that they started to look at last time. There's just one question, you think? The second probably main change I've made is to the way that I've done my instructions. I've tried to break it down into a set of 3 different instructions.
Draw yourself your own compass rose.
Okay, very good. One of the things I noticed very much today in my lesson was my relationship with them now. I feel they're much more trusting. They're quite happy to tell me when they didn't understand something.
Makes sense? And then you do each colour.
As my teaching goes forward, I think having student voice is going to be really important.